Welcome to White Collar Crimes That Radicalized Me. Today, we're going to be yapping about Purdue Pharma and how its actions contributed to one of America's deadliest drug epidemics, has left millions of lives destroyed in its wake. The opioid crisis wasn't just a result of overprescribing painkillers or immigrants down at the border. It was homegrown domestically, fueled by corporate greed, deceptive marketing, and a healthcare system that failed to protect the public. Okay, peep game and lock in, friends. It's 1994, and Purdue Pharma is about to unleash a storm that would change the game for America's relationship with pain medication. Michael Friedman, a sales and marketing executive at the company, sent an email to 3 of the members of the Sackler family. This email was basically saying, hey, remember how we're making a ton of money off of our other medication, MS-Contin? Well, now we've got a whole herd of doctors who are hooked on prescribing it. Hear me out. What if we were to use these doctors as a bridge to push our shiny new drug, OxyContin, beyond just cancer patients? And boy, did the idea catch fire. We're talking rocket ship straight to the moon, all gas, no brakes growth. OxyContin sales went from $48 million in 1996 to a whopping $1.1 billion by 2000. That's not just success, my friends. That there is a corporate jackpot that has been hit on the backs of unsuspecting patients. And this, dear watcher, is how a miracle drug became the cornerstone of an epidemic. Here's where the work starts to get real nasty. Purdue's marketing strategy was based on a dangerous lie, and that was that OxyContin was less addictive because it had a time-release formula. That is what they were telling people. Well, the company's sales force specifically targeted doctors all across the country, downplaying the risks of addiction and promoting the drug as a safe and effective solution for chronic pain. Purdue also used paid speaking engagements. They used educational seminars, even gifts to incentivize doctors to prescribe the drug. Purdue sales reps were rewarded with huge bonuses and commissions based on the volume of OxyContin that had been prescribed in their specific territories. Now, this is particularly important because before this, doctors were actually afraid to prescribe patients opioids for pain because of the risk of developing an addiction. However, as Purdue Pharma and other major pharmaceutical companies developed relationships with leading physicians and researchers, the spread of misinformation began stating that opioids were actually safe and effective. Purdue even went so far as to host dinner programs, weekend meetings to speak with doctors about OxyContin. In a 1996 email from Richard Sackler, he stated physicians who attended the dinner programs for weekend meetings wrote more than double the number of new prescriptions for OxyContin compared to the control group. It's the weekend meetings that had the greatest impact, increasing the new prescriptions for OxyContin twofold. It was purposefully marketed as a long-lasting, less addictive alternative to other opioids. Purdue spent millions on marketing campaigns persuading doctors to prescribe it more widely, even for minor pain. And by 2001, OxyContin had become one of the most prescribed opioids in the U.S., but behind the scenes, the addiction potential was becoming painfully clear. The result? Prescriptions skyrocketed, and so did the addiction rates. Patients who trusted their doctors were left vulnerable to one of the most addictive drugs on the market. But Deja, I thought white-collar crime only happened on Wall Street. Not at all, my love. This kind of fraud where the company knowingly disseminated false information to boost profits is a hallmark of white-collar crime. Purdue's marketing practices were aimed at driving sales, even when the internal data suggested that addiction risks were much higher than advertised, proving that the most dangerous drug dealers aren't on the block. Sometimes they wear lab coats and carry briefcases. Purdue Pharma not only misled doctors, but they also found ways to bypass regulatory scrutiny. So despite growing evidence of abuse and overdose, Purdue lobbied regulators, including the Food and Drug Administration, to allow OxyContin to remain on the market. The company also ignored early warnings about the drug's addictive nature. As more people became addicted, Purdue continued to push for higher doses and prolonged use. Their financial success was built on the foundation of manipulation, and the Sackler family became billionaires while the rest of the public suffered. Additionally, when faced with claims that OxyContin didn't last a full 12 hours, issue that the company had known about for decades, Purdue simply instructed the prescribers to just increase the dose, even though the higher doses were more dangerous. On top of this, Purdue was also the most prominent of several drug companies to pay third-party advocacy groups to fight against opioid-limiting laws and guidelines. Frightening little side notes for you. Between 2006 and 2015, the pharmaceutical industry spent almost $900 million on lobbying and campaign contributions. So when they ask you where is the money supposed to come from, I promise you, baby, it's there. In 2017 alone, over 191 million opioid prescriptions were dispensed to Americans with pain. By the early 2000s, opioid addiction had spread across the U.S., affecting people from all walks of life. OxyContin also became a gateway drug to heroin and synthetic opioids like fentanyl, leading to widespread overdose deaths. Between 1999 and 2020, more than 500,000 have died from opioid overdoses. Families have been torn apart, communities have been decimated, public health systems have been overwhelmed. While Purdue profited, the human cost of the opioid epidemic has grown to be unbearable. Truth about Purdue Pharma's role in the opioid crisis began to emerge in the early 2000s thanks to investigative journalists, whistleblowers, and state attorney generals. In 2007, Purdue Pharma was fined over $600 million for misleading the public about the risks of OxyContin. In 2019, they filed for bankruptcy after agreeing to pay $8 billion in settlements and fines, and the Sackler family also agreed to step down from the company and pay additional fines, though they did not admit to any personal wrongdoing. The opioid crisis and Purdue Pharma's role in it highlight the red flags of the American economy and how corporate greed can devastate public health. It also highlights the need for stronger regulation of pharmaceutical companies, more oversight of drug marketing practices, and a better understanding of addiction and patient responsibility within the medical community. It's also shown us firsthand how unchecked corporate power and having a culture that encourages putting profit over people can lead to unimaginable harm. Not only are we at a place where we have to demand transparency, responsibility, and accountability from corporations that hold the public health in their hands, but it's also a friendly reminder that the people most deserving of scrutiny aren't always the ones on the streets, but the ones in the boardroom shaping the policy that affects millions.